Hi, everyone. Welcome to July's version of the Reading Research Recap. Unless you're in year-round school like my son is, most of you guys are officially on summer vacation. So congratulations for a completed school year. And because of that, I wanted to do, or cover, I should say, a slightly different type of research. So this fascinating research paper talks about two things, genes or genetics, and home environment, that we know have a lot to do with reading skill and reading skill development, but they're two things that teachers don't have direct control or arguably any control over. So before we get to this fascinating research topic, I do want to do a quick recap of recaps. This is the first full school year where we've done this video blog or vlog in addition to the written vlog. And so I just wanted to highlight some of the studies we've covered. We have covered a large spectrum of literacy research, all the way from phonemic awareness through phonics, decodable text, fluency, reader's theater, activating background knowledge, sustained silent reading, promoting content area knowledge, and through comprehension. So a ton of different content topic areas, but also really rigorous research. So there are 5, I believe, systematic reviews or meta-analyses, as well as several experimental studies, including RCTs or randomized control trials. So be sure to check out all the old recaps that we've covered. In terms of crowd favorite, I think this one called Seeing the Mouth, where I talk about phonemic awareness, phonics, and sound walls, was the crowd favorite. But I didn't control, that's in terms of, amount of views, not controlling for the time since it was released. My personal favorite still remains this one on comprehension strategies. I just love the technique and the research question. It has such practical implications for teachers. So thank you guys as an audience, and thank you to Metametric's incredible marketing team who helped me put out this recap. All right, let's jump into the research for this month. So one of my majors in college was actually biology, but that was over 20 years ago. And so for this next section on background on biology and genes, I actually had to do quite a lot of research to make sure that I was getting this correct. In the nucleus of nearly every cell in your body, your DNA is packed tightly into chromosomes. Specific segments of DNA within your chromosomes are called genes, and there are about 18 genes or specific segments or regions of DNA that are associated with reading development, but only 8 have been replicated 3 times or more, and only 2 are located on the most replicated reading locus, a region known as DYX2 on chromosome 6. This research focused specifically on the gene DCDC2, which was found in that most replicated reading locus, and specifically they focused on a version or variant, also known as an allele, of DCDC2 called RU2-short. The RU2-short allele is called that because it contains fewer, or it's shorter, it has fewer copies of this specific region of the gene that's called a repeat unit 2. Prior research found that disruptions in the gene DCDC2 are associated with reading and language difficulties, but this specific version or allele of DCDC2, known as RU2-short, has not been investigated in relation to phonemic awareness skills of children and their home environment. You might be wondering why home environment's important. Well, genes are not your destiny. They are always interacting and taking cues from the environment. And you can imagine that home environment is going to be an important variable when considering reading development. These researchers were really interested in how this risk variant, RU2-short, influences reading skill. And they also wanted to investigate phonemic awareness and home environment. So to get the genetic sample, they took saliva tests from 1,400 African American and Hispanic American children aged 8 through 15 in the US. They also administered tests or measures of word reading, phonemic awareness, and comprehension. And to assess home environment, they had parents fill out a questionnaire and also looked at whether the parents were receiving government assistance. The researchers' results found support of this model, where the RU2-short allele definitely influences reading development, but it also influences reading development through phonological awareness skill. And the relationship between genes, the specific allele, and phonological awareness is conditional upon parental education and SES. So when parents have low education and low SES, this relationship between genes and phonological awareness is stronger. And that basically means that high SES and high parental education acts as a sort of protective factor. So how does a gene influence phonological awareness skill? Well, it's a fascinating question that we're still trying to figure out. But researchers think that this specific gene is involved in neuron migration. So are your nerve cells getting to the right layers of the brain? And this specific gene, DCDC2, is expressed or turned on mostly in areas of the brain associated with language and reading development. So if you have an allele or a version of this gene that has fewer copies of a certain regulatory element, that leads to your neurons not going to the right layer. So maybe you have clumps of neurons in layers where they're not supposed to be. You can kind of see how this picture forms where you might have reading difficulties. So what's the big take-home message from this study? Well, as a teacher, you probably cannot influence the home environment of the students arriving in your classroom. You definitely cannot influence their genes or genetics directly. But earlier, I did say that genes are always being interacted and influenced, I should say, by the environment. And so if you set up very good classroom environments, and by that I mean structured, systematic, explicit phonics and phonemic awareness instruction, then you are going to help your students even if they have these at-risk alleles. All right, that's all that I have for July, and I will see everybody in August, hopefully with some highlights from the SSR conference, so a really well-known reading research conference from Copenhagen.